Welcome to Realms of Infinite Dreams, the MMO that will change gaming forever. Featuring fully destructible environments with real-time physics, AI-driven NPCs with true intelligence and emotions, a player-driven economy where you can own actual businesses, housing systems with unlimited customization, a world that's truly alive. We've been working on this for 7 years in secret. Our team of industry veterans includes former leads from World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, and Skyrim. We have proprietary technology that no other MMO has ever achieved. This isn't just a game, it's a virtual world. Back our Kickstarter today. For just $50, you get lifetime access. For $500, you get alpha access, exclusive items, and your name in the credits. For $10,000, you can design your own dungeon that will be in the game forever. We need your support to make this dream a reality. Together, we'll build the MMO that every gamer has been waiting for.
It's been 3 years. Where's the alpha? Where's any gameplay? The last update was 18 months ago. The Discord is abandoned. The developers aren't responding to emails.
I reverse image searched their screenshots, their Unity asset store purchases. None of this was ever real.
They raised $3.2 million and delivered nothing. We've been scammed.
Welcome back to MMO Madness Behind the Troll Mask. I'm Boss Mode, and today we're talking about the ultimate catfish, fake developers and vaporware MMOs. These are the scams where instead of catfishing one person for gold, developers catfish thousands for millions of real dollars. Let's expose the games that never existed. Before we get into the infamous examples, let's define what we're talking about and how vaporware scams actually work. Vaporware is software that's announced and heavily promoted but never actually releases, or releases in such a broken state that it's essentially non-functional. In the MMO world, vaporware usually means crowdfunded games that take money from backers, promise revolutionary features, and deliver nothing. There's a spectrum here. At one end, you have legitimate developers who are overly ambitious. They genuinely believe they can deliver everything they promise, but they underestimate the complexity and cost. These projects fail not because of malice, but because of inexperience and optimism. In the middle, you have developers who start with good intentions, but give up when it gets hard. They take the money, work on the game for a while, and then realize they're way over their heads and quietly abandon the project. They're not outright scammers, but they're still taking money for a product that they're not going to deliver. At the far end, you have the outright scams. These are developers who never intended to make a game. They created impressive-looking campaigns with stolen assets, impossible promises, and fake credentials. They collect money and disappear. These are the con artists using game development as a cover for theft. The crowdfunding era made MMO vaporware epidemic. Before Kickstarter, you needed publisher funding to make an MMO. Publishers did due diligence. They checked if the team could actually deliver. But crowdfunding removed that filter. Anyone could create a campaign and ask for money, and gamers were hungry for the next great MMO. World of Warcraft clones weren't satisfying people anymore. They wanted innovation, risk-taking, features that big studios wouldn't attempt. When campaigns promised exactly that, people opened their wallets. The problem is that MMOs are incredibly expensive and complex to build. A competent team needs millions of dollars and years of development. Most crowdfunding campaigns ask for a few $100,000 and promise to deliver in 18 months. The math doesn't work. The budget is too small and the timeline is impossible. But people wanted to believe. They wanted their dream MMO to exist so badly that they ignored the red flags. They convinced themselves that passion could overcome budget constraints, that revolutionary features could be built quickly, that a small team could accomplish what massive studios couldn't. Vaporware developers exploit that hope. They tell people what they want to hear. They promise the impossible and make it sound plausible. They create hype and urgency. They get people emotionally invested before anyone asks critical questions about feasibility. All right, let's get into the Hall of Shame. These MMO vaporware projects that became infamous for how badly they failed or how blatantly they scammed people. Let's get into the Greedmonger. This one of the earliest and most obvious Kickstarter scams. Greedmonger launched a campaign in 2012 promising a sandbox MMO with player-driven economy, territorial control, and unlimited building options. They asked for $90,000. The campaign had red flags from day one. The team had zero game development experience. Their gameplay footage was clearly asset store demos. Their timeline was absurdly optimistic, and they got funded about $100,000 from 563 backers. Development was a disaster. They hired and fired multiple developers. They kept changing engines. They missed every deadline. They released an alpha that was literally just an empty Unity scene with some basic movement. You could walk around on terrain. That was it. No gameplay, no features, nothing they'd promised. Backers started demanding refunds. The lead developer, James Proctor, he responded by banning people from forums and blocking them on social media. He claimed they were working hard but couldn't show progress because of trade secrets. Eventually, the truth came out. Proctor had spent the Kickstarter money on personal expenses. He'd bought cars, paid personal debts, and barely spent anything on game development. The entire thing was a scam from the start. Proctor was investigated, and there were some talks of legal action, but most backers never got their money back. Greedmonger became the poster child for Kickstarter MMO scams. Chronicles of Illyria. This one's more tragic because it seemed legitimate for years. Chronicles of Illyria raised over $8 million through Kickstarter and on their own website. The promises were ambitious. Permadeath mechanics, aging characters, and a world that evolved with or without player presence. The developer, Soulbound Studios, seemed professional at first. They released regular updates, showed development progress, hired actual staff, but the red flags were there if you looked closely. They were spending money on motion capture before basic gameplay systems existed. They were building an office instead of contracting remote developers. They prioritized marketing over development. Years passed. The promised release dates came and went. Alpha kept getting delayed. Backers who questioned the delays were banned from the forums. The studio hired a community manager whose main job seemed to be banning critics. In 2020, after 6 years of development and millions of dollars spent, Soulbound Studios laid off the entire team and shut down. They released a statement saying they'd run out of funding and couldn't continue development. No refunds would be issued. Backers were furious. The founder, Jeremy Walsh, who had paid himself a salary for years while delivering nothing, they spent millions on unnecessary office space and questionable priorities. The game they'd shown was barely a tech demo. The community launched legal actions. There was an investigation into where the money went. But for most backers, their $50,000 to $10,000 plus was gone forever. Chronicles of Illyria became a cautionary tale of how even seemingly professional campaigns can be a vaporware. Earth and Beyond Revival. This one's a bit different. It's vaporware, but on nostalgia. Earth and Beyond was an actual MMO that shut down in 2004. In 2012, a group claimed they were going to revive it as a free-to-play game with permission from EA. They set up a website, started collecting donations, and promised the game would launch soon. They had a development tracker showing progress. They posted screenshots that looked legitimate. They built hype in an old Earth and Beyond community. Problem? They never had EA's permission. They were lying. When EA found out, they sent a cease and desist. The revival project shut down immediately, but not before collecting thousands of dollars in donations. The people behind it claimed it was a misunderstanding and they thought they had permission. But investigation showed they never even contacted EA. It was a scam targeting people's nostalgia for a dead game. This pattern was repeated with other dead MMOs. Someone claims they're reviving a beloved game, collects money, and either disappears or gets shut down by the IP holder. It's exploitation of people's emotional attachment to games they loved. Another Kickstarter disaster, Divergence Online, promised a space MMO with realistic physics, unlimited building, and seamless planetary to space transition. They raised about $45,000 in 2013. The developer, Ethan Kastner, was a solo dev with no MMO experience, but he was charismatic and convinced people he could do it. Development dragged on for years. He kept showing the same basic demos over and over, claiming each update was revolutionary progress. By 2016, backers realized nothing real existed. The gameplay footage was staged in tiny test environments. The features being demonstrated were either Unity plugins or didn't actually work. Kastner was faking progress. When confronted, Kastner became hostile. He claimed backers were ungrateful and didn't understand game development. He banned critics. He kept promising the game was almost ready while showing nothing new. Eventually, Kastner abandoned the project entirely. No refunds, no explanations, just disappeared. The game's website went dark. The forums were shut down. Backers were left with nothing. Divergence Online showed how a solo developer with no resources convinced people he's building an MMO through confident marketing and fake demos. It was pure vaporware from day one. Pathfinder Online. This one really hurts because it was attached to a legitimate IP. Pathfinder is a popular tabletop RPG, Goblin Works Incorporated, licensed to make an MMO. They raised over $1 million on Kickstarter in 2012. The promises were massive: a sandbox fantasy MMO, no NPCs, a entirely player-driven world, territory control, sophisticated crafting, and because it had the Pathfinder license, people trusted it was legitimate. Goblin Works hired developers and actually tried to build the game, but their budget was nowhere near sufficient. They released an early enrollment version in 2015, and it was barely functional. Empty world, broken mechanics, no polish whatsoever. They kept charging subscribers for their broken early access version, claiming they'd finish it eventually. In 2016, they laid off most of the staff and declared the game was in maintenance mode. While they sought more funding, that funding never came. The game still technically exists in a zombie state, You can log in and wander around an empty, broken world, but it's nothing like what they promised. It's a monument of failed ambition. Pathfinder Online wasn't a deliberate scam, but it was reckless. They took people's money knowing their budget was insufficient. They released a broken product and kept charging for it. They failed to deliver and refused to admit defeat. It's irresponsible vaporware. The repopulation. This one had a weird redemption arc. The repopulation was a sci-fi sandbox MMO that raised money through crowdfunding and early access. The original developers, Above and Beyond Technology, worked on it for years. Then disaster struck. Their engine provider, Hero Engine, had legal and financial problems. The repopulation got caught in the fallout. Development stalled. The game went offline. It looked like another vaporware disaster. But in 2016, a different company bought the repopulation's assets and tried to revive it. They switched engines, rebuilt systems, and actually released the game on Steam in 2018. It's not amazing, but it exists and it's playable. This is one of the rare cases where vaporware became a real game, even if it took a different team and many years. Most vaporware stays dead. The repopulation's revival shows it's possible, but it's the exception, not the rule. Let's talk about the most current one, Ashes of Creation, and this one's still to be determined. This one's different because it's still ongoing, and the verdict isn't out yet. Ashes of Creation launched its Kickstarter in 2017, raising over $3 million. They've since raised tens of millions more through their own crowdfunding platform, selling alpha access, cosmetics, and premium packages, some costing thousands of dollars. The promises are ambitious. Node system where the world changes based on player activity. Massive sieges with hundreds of players, no fast travel, player-driven economy, tab target, and action combat options. It's a lot, maybe too much. Here's where it gets complicated. Ashes of Creation isn't obviously a scam like Greedmonger. They have a real studio, Intrepid Studios, led by Steven Sharif, who's funding much of it with his own money from multi-level marketing. They've shown actual gameplay. They run regular tests. There's a game being built. But after 7 years, there's still no release date for an actual MMO. They released a battle royale mode that nobody asked for, which they later shut down. They released a castle siege mode, also shut down. They kept showing impressive demos, but the core MMO keeps getting delayed. The community is split. Supporters point to the regular development updates, the playable alpha test, and the transparency about systems. They argue Ashes is taking time to do it right, unlike rushed MMOs that launch broken. Critics point to the constant delays, the focus on selling expensive cosmetics before the game exists, the scope creep, and the fact that 7 years in, we still don't have a beta. They see patterns similar to other vaporware, ambitious promises, beautiful marketing, but the actual game always seems just out of reach. The red flags are there if you look. The timeline keeps stretching. The promises keep expanding. They're selling $500 to $1,000 plus cosmetic packs for games that doesn't exist yet. The alpha tests are brief, controlled environments that don't represent the full game. But there are also signs that it might be legitimate. They have a real team of experienced developers. They show actual working systems, not just concept art. Steven Sharif is putting his own money in, not just spending backer funds. The game exists in some form, even if it's not ready. So, what's the verdict? Is Ashes of Creation going to launch a real game? Or will it join the Chronicles of Illyria and Vaporware graveyard? Honestly, it's too early to tell. It could go either way. If it launches and delivers even 70% of what's promised, it'll be a success story, showing that ambition crowdfunding MMOs can work. If it collapses or launches in a broken state, it dies. It's another cautionary tale about overpromising. Then in early 2026, everything collapsed. Intrepid Studios laid off the entire development team. Everyone. The whole staff got let go. Stephen Sharif, the founder and creative director, who had been the face of the project for 7 years, walked away from the project entirely. The official story is that there were conflicts with the board of directors. Sharif wanted to continue development one way, the board wanted something different, and rather than compromise his vision, Sharif left. He released a statement saying that he was stepping away but hoped the project would continue. Backers who had been waiting 7 years and had invested hundreds or thousands of dollars were devastated. This looked like the end. Another ambitious MMO joining the Vaporware graveyard. Chronicles of Illyria all over again. But then came another announcement. A different studio claims they're taking over development of Ashes of Creation. New leadership, new team, supposedly committed to delivering the game. Sharif made statements supporting this transition, saying he believes in the new team. Here's where it gets messy. Nobody knows if the new studio is legitimate or if it's just an extension of the scam. Nobody knows if they actually have the technical knowledge, the funding, or the capability to finish what Intrepid started. Nobody knows if they're being brought in to quietly shut down the project while pretending to save it. Some backers see this as a potential salvation. New leadership might fix what was broken, might actually deliver the game. Others see it as the final stage of a long con. String people along a bit more, maybe sell a few more cosmetic packs, then quietly shut down in a year or two. The red flags are massive. The original founder walked away. The entire development team was fired. 7 years of development and there's still no complete game. And now we're supposed to trust a new unknown studio to finish it. That's a lot to ask. But there are also arguments for cautious optimism. Sharif publicly endorsed the new team. The game's code and assets exist. Someone could theoretically finish it. The new studio might bring fresh perspective and a better management. It's possible, however, unlikely. So, what's the verdict on Ashes of Creation? As early as 2026, it's a cautionary tale in progress. It's not confirmed vaporware yet. The new studio might pull off a miracle, but it's also not looking good. When the founder walks away and the entire team gets laid off, that's usually the death knell. If you backed Ashes in 2017 and are still waiting, you now understand the worst case scenario of crowdfunding. Your money went into 7 years of development, and that might amount to nothing. The founder gave up, the team is gone, and you're supposed to trust complete strangers to finish the project. If you're thinking about backing and unreleased MMOs in the future, let Ashes of Creation be your lesson. Even well-funded projects with professional teams and passionate founders can collapse. Even games that show real progress can fall apart. Nothing is guaranteed until the game launches, stays running, and proves sustainable. The saddest part, there's actually game code. Real systems were built. Ashes of Creation was closer to being real than most vaporware. But close doesn't count. Until a playable, complete MMO is in players' hands, It's all just expensive promises. Will the new studio resurrect Ashes of Creation? Will it launch in some form? Or will it join Chronicles of Valeria, Greedmonger, and all the other failed crowdfunder MMOs and Vaporware graveyard? We'll find out. But if you're holding your breath waiting for Ashes to launch, you may want to exhale. This story doesn't have a happy ending yet, and it might never get one. Let's break down how Vaporware campaigns actually work and what tactics fake developers use to convince people to give them money. First, they make impossible promises, revolutionary AI, destructible everything, unlimited players in one server, photorealistic graphics. They promise features that would require teams of hundreds and budgets of tens of millions. They're promising things that AAA studios with massive resources struggle to deliver. Second, they use emotional manipulation. They tell you this is your chance to be a part of something special. They say big publishers won't take risks, so gamers have to fund innovation. They appeal to your frustration with current MMOs and promise to fix everything wrong with them. Third, they create urgency. Limited time backer rewards, early bird pricing, and exclusive access to first supporters. They want you to pledge before you think too hard about whether this is realistic. They create FOMO, fear of missing out. Fourth, they use impressive but fake visuals, screenshots from Unity Asset Store, concept art that looks professional, gameplay footage that's either staged or completely fake. They know most backers can't tell the difference between real progress and smoke and mirrors. Fifth, they claim credentials they don't have, industry veterans who worked on unnamed projects at major companies, proprietary technology that's revolutionary. 7 years of secret development before the crowdfunding. These claims are either lies or exaggerations. 6. They're vague about specifics. They describe grand visions but don't explain actual systems or mechanics. They say innovative AI without explaining how it works. They promise player-driven economy without detailing the mechanics. Vagueness lets them avoid being held to specific promises. 7th, they silence critics. Anyone who questions feasibility or points out red flags gets banned from forums, blocked on social media, and accused of being haters or trolls. They create echo chambers where only positive comments are allowed. The psychology they exploit is simple. People want to believe. They want their dream MMO to exist. When someone promises exactly that dream, they want it to be real so badly that they ignore warning signs. They convince themselves that this time will be different. And there's sunk cost fallacy. Once you've pledged money and emotionally invested, it's hard to admit you've been scammed. You keep hoping, keep believing, and keep making excuses for why development is slow. Accepting you've been conned feels worse than continuing to hope. All right, practical advice time. How do you identify Vaporware campaigns before they take your money? Here are some red flags to watch for. Red flag 1, the budget doesn't match the promises. If they're promising a revolutionary MMO and asking for 100,000, the math doesn't work. Real MMO development costs millions. If their budget is tiny but promises are huge, either they're lying about the scope or they're incompetent about cost. Red flag number 2, no playable demo. If they've been in development for years but have no playable demo, they don't have a game. Concept art and screenshots are easy to fake. A playable demo shows they actually built something. Red flag number 3. The team has no relevant experience. Check LinkedIn, verify credentials, research past projects. If the industry veterans have no verifiable game development history, they're lying. If they're first-time developers, they shouldn't be attempting an MMO. Red flag number 4, vague or impossible technical claims. Proprietary engine, revolutionary AI, unlimited players. These are buzzwords without substance. Ask for technical details. Real developers can explain how their tech works. Scammers deflect. Red flag number 5, no development roadmap, or the roadmap is absurdly optimistic. If they claim they'll launch an MMO in 18 months with small team and limited budget, they're either lying or delusional. Real development takes years. Red flag number 6, they're spending money on the wrong things. If they're buying office space, doing motion capture, or creating marketing materials before they have core gameplay, their priorities are wrong. That money should be going to development. Red flag number 7, they ban critics or hide criticism. Legitimate developers address concerns and criticism professionally. Scammers delete negative comments, ban critics, and create echo chambers. If the community is all cheerleading and no critical thinking, that's suspicious. Red flag number 8, they've missed multiple deadlines without clear explanations. Everyone misses deadlines occasionally, but if they keep promising dates and not delivering, they're either lying about progress or incompetent at project management. And red flag number 9, reverse image search their screenshots. If their in-game footage is Unity assets, store demos, or screenshots from another game, they're faking it. Real development has unique assets. Red flag number 10, trust your gut. If something feels too good to be true, it probably is. If promises sound impossible, they probably are. And if you're getting scam vibes, listen to that instinct. Before you pledge your hard-earned money, do research. Check developer history, search for criticism, ask for technical questions, demand evidence and real progress. If they can't provide any of that, don't give them the money. It's better to miss out on a legitimate project than to fund a scam. So, why do people keep backing Vaporware even after all these high-profile scams? Why do we keep hoping the next campaign will be different? First, there's genuine scarcity. The MMO market has been stagnant for years. We're getting endless WoW clones and mobile cash grabs. People are desperate for innovation, for something new. When a campaign promises exactly that innovation, people want to believe it's possible. Second, there's the lottery mentality. People know most crowdfunding campaigns fail, but they think, maybe this one will succeed, and they'll be a part of something amazing. It's the same psychology as buying lottery tickets. You know the odds are bad, but the potential payoff makes it feel worth the risk. Third, there's community and belonging. Backing a campaign makes you part of a community of early believers. You're on the forums, discussing features, feeling like an insider. That social connection is valuable even if the game never launches. You're paying for community as much as for the game. Fourth, there's the sunk cost fallacy we mentioned earlier. Once you've pledged, admitting it was a mistake means accepting you wasted money and were fooled. It's easier to keep believing, keep defending, and keep hoping. Admitting you've been scammed is psychologically painful. Fifth, there's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Most backers don't understand game development complexity. They don't know how impossible some promises are. They can't evaluate whether a timeline is realistic. They trust developers to know what they're doing, even when those developers clearly don't. And sixth, there's the fundamental want for magic. We want someone to solve MMO stagnation. We want revolutionary features. We want the perfect game. When someone promises to deliver that, we want to believe in magic. The Vaporware cycle continues because hope is renewable. Every failure is explained away. They were amateurs, but this team is different. Every scam is rationalized. They were malicious, but these developers are sincere. We keep believing the next campaign will be the one that delivers. Until the industry changes how crowdfunding works, until platforms require proof of capability before allowing campaigns, until backers get more skeptical, Vaporware will keep happening. Vaporware MMOs are the ultimate catfish. Instead of catfishing one person for affection or gold, these developers catfish thousands for millions of dollars. They promise impossible dreams, collect money, and deliver nothing. If you're a developer thinking about crowdfunding, understand that every Vaporware scam makes it harder for legitimate projects to get funded. Every failure destroys trust. If you can't deliver what you promise, don't promise it. If your budget is insufficient, don't launch a campaign. If you're not experienced enough, don't attempt an MMO. And if you're a backer, be skeptical, question everything. Demand proof, verify credentials. Don't let hope override critical thinking. It's okay to want innovative games, but don't pay for promises, only pay for demonstrable progress. The tragedy of MMO Vaporware is that it makes legitimate innovation harder. When everyone's been scammed, no one wants to back risky projects. We end up stuck with safe, boring MMOs because nobody trusts ambitious campaigns anymore. Next week on MMO Madness Behind the Troll Mask, we're diving into trolling the roleplay community, why it's so easy, well, and wrong. We're talking about the griefers who target RP servers, the tactics they use, and why roleplay communities are particularly vulnerable to trolling. You definitely don't want to miss it. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and support the podcast. Tell your guildmates, share it on your Discord, and leave us a review. And if you've got a Vaporware story, backed a scam, dodged a bullet, or watched one unfold, email me at podcast@mmomadness.com. Until then, before you pledge, trust but verify. And remember, if it sounds too good to be true, it definitely is. I'm Boss Mode, and thanks for listening.